Greetings, welcome back to AP Computer Science Principles. This is Unit 5, Lists, Loops, and Traversals. We are on Part 2 of the Hackathon, Lesson 11. Let's get straight into it. We're pretty much finishing up the paperwork part of it, right? So today is the rest of the paperwork. That's what we're doing. Also, as you're going through it, and we'll go over this a little bit, just a couple reminders for when you're building it. Test that you can maneuver stuff, so you don't have to get all the code going, but you want to make sure that everything is kind of interacting correctly with that. And then you'll start building. So we're going to go over this piece right here, and then again you can go off to start building. That's what we're gonna talk about a little bit more on the next lesson. So let's kind of look at this real quick, a little bit better detail. Gotta really practice what you're going to do. What are you going to need? So you drew this all out, right? You should have drawn the actual pieces out, and you should be able to say, okay, this is going to be flavor button or button flavor, however you want to do it, BTN flav. Whatever you're going to do, each of these pieces you need to identify, especially if you interact with it. With other means, if you click on it, because you need event listener and you need to know its name, or it changes and you need to know its name so you can change it with the code, right? So you need to be able to identify each of those items, name output. It would be a label, a text box, whatever it is, you need to have it all named out and designed. So with your drawing that you have, you can even, if you want, especially you can do this by hand. It's totally fine that you, well, probably at this point, hopefully you're already past this, but you could have done with draw it by hand and then just write on it, or label it as well. Even in the photos, you can add items to it. So that really helps when you're designing all these pieces, so you don't forget anything. Then what variables do you need, right? In the COVID example, if we're still going to use the data set from COVID, I need to know the death rate or death or whatever you want to do. You need to know this, or the user input deaths or user input cases, right? So as you're going through this, and maybe you have a drop down of all the states, right? You have a drop down of all the states, so they can select a state and it can give them the statistics. Whatever it might be, have your variables in there. A lot of them are going to be from the user input, but then you're going to have some list as well, a list of states, confirmed deaths, total deaths. Those are all pieces that you can do. So if you need to delete this one and type over it, or at any time if you just highlight it, right click, insert row above or below. Oops, that's not what I want to do. That will allow you to add more rows if you need more rows. But again, you probably have at least, in like my case, at least 3 lists, and then you might want to take the user input as a variable, or storage things as a variable. Again, remember the list, filtered list holders that we were talking about. Are there going to be any if statements? Right, and again, if confirmed cases are greater than 10,000. Now, your thing might just say if cases greater than user input cases, right? You don't have to put numbers. You can put is list item greater than user input item. And hopefully you're using your actual variable names. I'm just giving you an example on that. And then kind of think about your for loop for this. For var I is less than state.length, I++, and you're going to traverse through all of the states. And let's say you have a drop down, you select a drop down of Oregon, and then it'll loop through all of them, and as soon as it gets to Oregon, it'll pull the stats from Oregon, right? Maybe that's one of your pages as an example. And then your buttons. All right, so hopefully these element IDs are already identified up here for you. All right, these are already identified, but you want to make sure you really focus on these, because these are what happens when you have the events. So you need a what happens, right? This is just what it does, notes about it. But this is, I got to think about what is it actually going to do. And then do you have any functions? Update screen is probably a big common one. And that's it, right? That's today's piece. You're filling out all of this information. So based on these drawings, try to identify everything that you're going to need to use, because as soon as that's done, you're going to start building it. You're going to go, I said I'm going to have, so design, I am going to have a text input here, so I can do this. And you can have it so we have all kinds of stuff. So you maybe have some label here that tells them what to do, and then a button down here, and basically they can either select, and you can have separate things. Maybe it's enter the case count here, and when you click this button, it takes you to a screen that will give you all of this, a list of all the states with over that. Again, you can program that all into one. You don't have to, this button takes me to the screen and then that screen does something. You can make it so it takes this data, goes to the next screen with you, and you have to add more screens, and then you go. And the same thing with this. This is drop down all the states. I drop down Oregon, I click the button, and it takes me to a screen with all of the stats from Oregon, and then you have a back button, right? So that's all stuff that you should have drawn out, and then actually added all the details in here, so you should know that all those pieces are there. That is all that I have for you today. Again, you can start building it once you have all of that. So that's it of part 2. We'll see you for part 3.